Hello and welcome back to the Genesis Edge product line video series. My name is Charles Johnson, lead trainer and technical engineer at Lynxspring. And today we're going to be talking about histories. Well, what are histories? Well, to simply put, histories are samples that are taken over a specified interval of time or change of value. Much like alarm extensions, history extensions are added to points to collect that sample in the same manner. However, for us, the history palette is the only palette we're going to need in order to do anything history related. Under the extensions folder in my history palette, you see I have two types of histories for each point type that belongs to the common object model in Niagara. Numeric intervals, that's great for your space temps, humidities, flows, anything that's going to constantly change. Your numeric COVs are going to be great for like your set points that are only settable and not written to by any logic, such as like a static pressure reset or a supply air reset. Those I would actually put a numeric interval on. Boolean COV is the most common one for me that I use for any Boolean point. I don't really see a need for a Boolean interval, but we want to make sure that they're always supported. Enum I've used quite a bit, especially when doing some kind of like McQuay integration or Daikin integration, where I am taking the histories, the warnings, and the problems, and alarming or putting an enum COV across that enum to make sure that anytime there is a history or anytime there's an alarm there or problem or warning, it is then archived in our system. Now, remember that this is an edge controller and not a J. So while we want to make sure that we add histories, we don't want to add too many. I still like to do 1 week's worth of trends for my numeric points and COV for my Boolean points. So let's start with my Boolean point here. And the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this Boolean COV onto my fan status point. And I'm just going to name it history. And again, I rename my extensions to make sure that in case a novice comes back behind and takes a look at the system, they know what it is. Now, most seasoned Niagara integrators will know the Boolean COV extension by seeing it, and they don't change it. However, for novice users, it may not be it may not make that much sense, so that's why I like to change them. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this history, and I'm going to name this AHU underscore 101 underscore parent dot name or percent parent dot name percent. We can see here that the history config is expanded to show the record count. Well, this is how many records this history can show. And based upon the policy, in this case, full policy, what do we do when the record is full? Well, either we're going to roll it over, which means it's going to overwrite the oldest history we have, or we can actually choose to just stop all the histories there. I only set up stop histories, especially if they're going to be for commissioning purposes. If the commissioning agent needs to see a specific portion of trends for a specific period of time, I'll go ahead and get that there, and then just stop the histories when we are full. So as right now, I'm going to enable this one here, and I'm going to then click Save, just to see that we have AHU 101 underscore fan status. And we can see that we now have a history that is put in our history space for our specific controller. Now I can take this same history and copy and paste it into each other Boolean point that I have. And I'll do the same thing with my fan command. I'll also do the same with my occupancy command, night setback, night setup. You can see here. Okay. So now I'm going to show you a different type of naming. And I'll go ahead and just do this here. This parent.name means that I'm going to take the parent of what this extension is. So wherever this is, I'm going to take the parent of that, which is just the fan status. So if I actually wanted to put AHU101 without typing it here, I would have to look at the parent dot parent dot parent dot parent. So 4 parents up. So that could be kind of a pain to continue to type out, which is why I'm going to show you a better way. Now, I'm going to preface this that this only works with points that are truly proxy points. Remember, proxy points are points that represent something outside of the station in the station. They are a representative of a device or point. For example, especially when we do BACTA integration or LON integration, we are creating points that are a representative of the objects in those controllers. How do we know that we have a proxy point? Well, if I double click here and I see the proxy ext, you can see that there is an extension here. So I know that that's when I have a proxy point. If I were to go to a set point under my network settings and go to occupancy override, we can see the proxy ext is null. And because the proxy ext is null, we know that this was a point that was actually created in Niagara as a Niagara point. So what I'm about to do only works for proxy extensions. Under my supply temp underscore sensor, I'm going to drag in a numeric interval. And I'm going to name it history. Now for here, I'm going to do a couple things. Under the history config, I'm going to keep it at 15 minutes. But what if I wanted to make sure that I kept trends for a week? Well, if I take 15 minutes, that means that's 4 times in an hour, which means that there are 24 hours in a day, which would give me 96 points. And if I multiply that by 7, I get 672. So 15 minutes, 672 records, that gives us 1 week's worth of trends. Now, for the history name, I'm going to do something a little bit different. What I'm going to type here now is I'm going to type in parent.proxyext.device.name underscore. Now, what did I just do? Well, I am just taking the display name of the component. It does not matter where the proxy point resides. This is the name of the device in which a proxy point resides, no matter how many levels I have. And I'm going to select save here. So this parent.proxyext.device.name is going to give me this name here regardless. Now to show you that, I'm going to go ahead and select enable here. And now I'm going to go look at what I have here. I have AHU underscore 101 underscore SATemp underscore sensor. So to me, that's pretty fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and take this history and copy it and paste it into each of my other sensors. And each of my outputs. Okay, well, I see here that I have these two here, but I don't have anything else. So I'll go ahead and attempt to refresh the history space, but I still don't see them. Why is that? I enabled one, I copied and enabled history into my points containers or in my components. Well, by default, It will automatically disable the rest of the histories when you copy and paste. This is done as a safety measure because what if I accidentally set this for a minute? And now if I had it enabled across 100 points, now I'm taking 100 samples a minute, that could actually be very detrimental to my Edge controller. So by default, it keeps it disabled. Now I could go individually in each history and enable it. However, if I expand my config space and expand my services container, I'm going to double click my history service. And now I see that I have histories that are disabled. Well, I'm going to multi-select all of these. And I'm going to go ahead and hit this button here that looks like a play button that says Enable Collection. And now when I do, it gives me the history name and all the history samples that I have. Now, currently, because I really don't have any things that are currently connected, you're not going to see much data, if any. But when I click on a chart, or when I double click on a history, its default view is a history chart in HTML5 form. So as right now, it's -13, so you're not going to see anything here. But if there were additional data, we can actually see it here. We also could then take other histories and drag them and drop here and export them to a chart, just to show or to create a chart for a customer, just to look at, hey, in comparison to supplier temp sensor, return air temp, etc. This is the way to do it. Now, if I were to delete any of my histories, well, they would still stay here regardless. And that's because the records are permanently kept in the Edge controller itself. In order to delete any of these permanently, you can right click on the history space and select AX database maintenance or database maintenance. From here, you can multi-select all your alarms. I mean, all your histories, I apologize. And you can actually either clear the records or even delete the histories themselves. So if you need to get out of jail free and want to make sure that you have a clean set of trends, you can go ahead here and clean them up. And that's all that I have for you today. Have a great one, and I'll see you the next time.